Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tarek Wilkins, and I am a student ambassador here at the University of Memphis. On behalf of the Office of Advancement and Alumni Association, I am excited to welcome you to today's Lunch with Leader webinar. We are honored to feature Dr. Mario Brown, Chief Talent Officer at First Horizon and President-elect of U of M's Alumni Association National Board. Today's session is titled The 10X Clarity Code, How Perfection is the Enemy of Exponential Growth. Dr. Brown will share insights on leadership clarity, strategic focus, and how identifying the right priorities rather than simply doing more can lead to exponential growth. But before we begin, just a couple of reminders. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared afterwards. If you have questions during the presentation, please drop them in the Q&A portion. Dr. Brown's team member, Janice Ray, will be monitoring the chat and help us gather questions for the Q&A portion at the end. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Mario Brown is a two-time graduate of the University of Memphis, earning degrees in computer engineering technology and higher and adult education. He currently serves as Chief Talent Officer at First Horizon Bank, where he leads talent strategy and development. But as a proud Tiger, Dr. Brown continues to give back to the U of M community through his leadership and service. He currently serves as President-elect of the Alumni Association's National Board of Directors and was recognized as a distinguished young alumnus in 2017. Please join me welcoming Dr. Mario Brown.
So I'm talking on me. So I said a lot of great things. I got to catch up right now. Once again, welcome Tiger family, Mario Brown here. I want to go ahead and get to it because I have a lot of great information to share with the Tiger family all together. And as Tariq said earlier, thank you for that introduction. This is all about the 10X Clarity Code. So let's go ahead and begin and jump right into the info for today. So the first thing I want to start off with is just a little bit of grounding here. So let me begin with this particular slide. 4,000. There was a gentleman named Oliver Berkman who wrote a book called 4,000 Weeks, you all. And in this particular book, he talked about what we do with our lives. And guess what? 4,000 is the number of weeks on average every person has to live. Now, if you're anything like me, you might begin calculating. Don't do that, people. Remember, he said that this is on average. It's not a sentence as to like, this is exactly how many weeks you'll live. It's just on average. But I think, more importantly, when I think about this, a lot of us spend a huge chunk of our lives living in a past that we can't change, but also being very anxious and nervous about a future that has not happened yet. And in the book, Oliver Berkman, he talks about how the best thing that all of us can do is enjoy the present because it's a gift, right? And he talked also about the idea of being here now. So if you have anything to write down, I really want you to write that down. Be here now. And really that concept talks about how when we focus our energy on the now and we stop striving for a distant or perfect future, we really can deliver excellence today. And you know what? That excellence is fuel for us to live another day, to do things differently as well. But it all begins with us having the awareness around it. I want to extend this grounding concept again before we get into the clarity code around another one. Back in 1969, there was a gentleman named Dr. Eric Burney. And you all, Dr. Eric Burney wrote a book called The Games That People Play. Now, I know if y'all are anything like me, you're like, sure do. People play games all the time. But guess what? Here's the deal. Everybody plays games. But the most dangerous game that we play is the one that we play with ourselves. It's the time when we say we are not good enough, smart enough, or talented enough to do this or do that. It's the time when we look around and we shortchange ourselves before we even begin the journey. In fact, in the book, I will tell you that this book that Dr. Burney wrote, it's not necessarily a page turner, but it does have some real good information in there. I translated to ones and zeros and the idea of infinity. In other words, Dr. Burney talked about how there are some people who go through life who are playing the infinite game, and then there's others who play the finite game. And what I will kind of charge with this particular group as we talk about today, ones and zeros, the finite game, is not a good way to live life. Because what you do is you live in complacency. You live in the now and what's around you. You don't really look forward to a new or better or greater future. And thinking about that and having that mindset, because that is definitely a mindset shift, it requires great awareness on your part. It requires you, which we'll talk about in just a second, to let go of some of the old stuff so that you can have room for the better stuff. And I'll leave it at that. But let me give you an example, and I won't share all of these. But y'all, I remember at the onset of COVID, I don't know if people started to get bored or what was going on, but in the land of then Twitter, now X, there was like this crazy chicken sandwich war. And some of y'all may remember this. Like people started firing and saying all kinds of stuff back and forth. Companies like Popeyes, Taco Bell, everybody had started doing this new kind of spin on chicken sandwich or chicken products out of all things. And so I want you to think about that. And if you don't believe me, go back and look on Google after the call today and kind of see some of it was hilarious, some of the things that people did to try to one up each other around who has the best chicken sandwich. And so you get all these players that are in the game. All of this noise is being within the atmosphere. But here's what I'm going to tell you. You know who really was not a participant in that? I know some of y'all are probably already saying it now. Chick-fil-A. Why? Because Chick-fil-A has always been focused on the future vision. They keep that as a reminder of where they're going and what they need to do from moment to moment. And so all of that noise was not necessarily something that they focused on. They focused on the greater good. And you all, throughout time, we have seen this in various industries. Some of you all may remember Blockbuster when that was around and getting charged all the fees for not rewinding your tapes. But if we even fast forward into the academic field, there are some people who are really striving for this idea of perfection so much that they do things to increase what was called an H index. And some of you researchers on the call today will know what that means. But basically, it is a mechanism that really kind of talks about how many times a person has published and or been cited and how popular it is within other research articles. Pull back for just a second and go back to what Dr. Eric Byrne said. What are we doing? What are you doing? Do you strive for excellence every day, or do you strive for perfection? Throughout this presentation, I will share my argument that striving for perfection probably is not the best game to play for yourself or for anyone else in the long haul. But to get to that point, I got another story for you. So I'm gonna come out of the screen for just a second. I want you to focus on this particular visualization that you see here. Okay. All right. So you see a couple of people going across some snow. Let me give you some more details on what that is. Let me take you back to 1911. There were two men with one goal, and that was to reach the South Pole. That was the most hostile environment on Earth at that time. And these two gentlemen were not about to participate in just a race. They were actually had very different philosophies. So a little backstory for you to understand. In the early 1900s, what has become known as the greatest race to the South Pole came about incidentally rather than by design. At no time did the lead explorers, which I'm going to share with you in just a second, acknowledge or plan to be the first man to reach one of the last great geographic goals of the age, which was the South Pole. In the end, one explorer led their team to ultimate victory, and one explorer led their team to ultimate victory. So let's begin to get a short glimpse of how. So here are the two expedition leaders, you all. On the left-hand side, we have Ronald Amundsen. I would call him a 10X leader. Why? Because Ronald did not try to reinvent the wheel. When he got ready to go on the South Pole expedition, he went to go live with Eskimos to learn what actually worked. He chose dogs over complex machinery, but his secret weapon was clarity. He committed to something called the 20-mile march. No matter what, if there was a blizzard or if the sun was shining, his team only moved 15 to 20 miles every single day. He never waited for the perfect weather, but he built a process that was excellent regardless of the weather. He shared the extra to focus on what I would call the essential. Now, over to the right, we have Sir Robin Falcon Scott. He was a man of more, you all. He brought motor sledges, ponies, and massive amounts of scientific data. He sought perfection through complexity. When the weather was good, He pushed his team 40 or 50 miles. And when it was bad, he would huddle in his tent and wait for perfect conditions. But if any of you all know anything about the Antarctic, there never are perfect conditions. Take a look here. So someone made it to the South Pole, and someone in this race, in a race, someone has to be first and someone has to be last. So I think you all know where I'm going with this. Sir Robert Falcon Scott, the perfectionist, was a man of more. Sir Scott arrived to the South Pole only to find someone else had actually beat him there. And what's even more sad about this particular situation is that Sir Scott and also his crew, on the way back from this particular adventure, actually, they all perished to the weather conditions of the South Pole. Ronald Amundsen was a little bit different. Survived, won by being clear, had radical simplicity, right? Had a lot of clarity around what he wanted to do. He let go of the old to make room for the new because he knew what he had to do. You all, what I want to kind of share here is that as we go through life, and hopefully if you're anything like me, this will apply to you, the excellence that we want to deliver and how we get through life actually is what you see here. It lives in the process, okay? It lives in the process. But if you don't believe me, let me go back to something that I grew up on. How many people, well, I don't have time for that, but I'll say most of you all probably remember Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And I used to love flipping through my book with the finger holes and the gold pages on the end and looking up words. Here's the definition of perfection. Because I know that on this call, just like I meet people every single day, there are people who claim to be perfectionists, right? But I want you to look at this particular definition. And after reading this, I knew for Mario Brown, once I read that second bullet point, that I was nowhere near perfect. Besides my wife telling me, reminded me that I'm not, I knew then that that was not Mario Brown. Let me keep going forward here. Take a look at this staircase, you all. The idea of perfection, if you really, really think about it, the concept is fleeting. Why? It's because once we reach that new level, that new place, what happens? Another level is revealed to us. And so then we are on this journey to get to that level. And if you really think about it, as we go through this cycle of trying to be perfect, really the goals, desires, ideas, and all these things about being perfect are constantly moving further and further away from us as we move through life altogether. So I guess what I wanted to share today is how do we assure, for the most part, that we can end this cycle for ourselves, but really prime ourselves to go back to what Oliver Berkman said and really be here now and enjoy the moments and deliver excellence every day and not just some days. So what I would like to do is share a quick video from, I like to call her my cousin, but she's not. But since we have the last name, I like it. Her name is Dr. Brene Brown. Let's take a look at this video clip about her idea of perfectionism.
Let's talk about some of the most common examples of armor. You were talking about the armor that we put on to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I think the big three are perfectionism, numbing, foreboding joy, and there's also cynicism, cool, and being critical. So let's look at them. Perfectionism. How many of you struggle with perfectionism a little bit? Okay, so my favorite story is that someone sent me an email one time that said, hey, I know you have a book on shame, not so interested in that, but if you ever write on perfectionism, I can't wait. So here's the secret. When perfectionism is driving, shame is always riding shotgun, and fear is the annoying backseat driver.
Say it again.
When perfectionism is driving, shame is always riding shotgun. We struggle with perfectionism in areas where we feel most vulnerable to shame. Does that make sense? So we're all comfortable saying, yeah, I'm a little perfectionistic, which is code for like I do things really well. But I'm not comfortable saying I have shame. But perfectionism, what is that? I call it the 20-ton shield. Here's what perfectionism really is. It's a way of thinking that says this: if I look perfect, live perfect, work perfect, I can avoid or minimize criticism, blame, and ridicule.
Whoa, that's good.
All perfectionism is the 20-ton shield that we carry around hoping that it'll keep us from being hurt. When in truth, what it does is it keeps us from being seen. And so we had a great talk about what's the difference between perfectionism.
Yes, because somebody on my staff had the nerve to tell me that I was a perfectionist. And I absolutely denied that. And you stood by me. Thank you very much. Because I'm not a perfectionist. I'm a person who strives for excellence and requires excellence. There is a difference, is there not?
There is a difference. Here's the difference. Because sometimes I'm a healthy striver.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm a perfectionist. It depends on if I've got a worthiness crunch going on. So healthy striving is internally focused. It's I want to do this and be the best I can be. Perfectionism is not about what I want. Perfectionism is exactly what will people think.
Yes.
So how many of you have driven by what will people think? So I'll give you a great example. So while we're taping these, my son's first day at school. And so, I'll be home tomorrow, right? It's not a big deal, but it's what will people think?
Is he in the first grade?
Second.
Second. Okay.
So he is monogrammed from toe to toe. His haircut, everything's laid out. His lunch will have some kind of vegetable fruit ratio that's perfect. Because I am struggling a little bit.
Because you're here with me and not...
And what will people think?
What will people think? They're going to think, there she is up there with Oprah.
Yeah.
In her fancy boots. Yes, in her fancy boots, yeah.
Right. But, so the thing is, you can't ever do anything brave if you're wearing the straitjacket of what will people think.
All right, so I want you to, in the chat, we can come back to it at the end, but I want you to think about this idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. I love how Brene described it because she's right. That's what all of the research really showcases around this as well. But I want you to take a look at this one too. When you ask psychologists to describe a perfectionist, just look for a second at some of the things you see here. So a behavior disorder, overly critical of themselves, even here, inflexible. And on this side here, fearful of failure, a lack of innovation. You all, if we had more time, I promise we probably could go around a room because within all of our lives, and maybe even with ourselves, as Brene shared earlier, we probably have struggled with some of these things. But we certainly have also noticed other people around us who probably struggle with this more than they should, or they focus on this way more. As a matter of fact, they subscribe to this idea so much that you and other people probably see it as a crutch for where they can go and what they can do. And so here's what I'll say. As much as, we would love to dictate and try to help people in their lives, the best we can do with other people is to influence themselves. So I guess what I'm trying to say is today I'm speaking to the people who are on the call. Because the one person you can control is yourself, right? And how you think and what are your behaviors and actions. And hopefully through your role modeling or your own awareness or enlightenment as you go through the years, you'll be able to influence others, especially those who you see they may be struggling with this, to do something different as well. So let's get into this idea of 10x versus 2x. And in just a second, you all, you're going to see some graphics that I created. I am an engineer and educator by trade, not an artist. I live vicariously through my kids who are wonderful artists. So on this next slide, I'm going to be striving for excellence, not perfection. Okay, I just want to put that out there. But here's the picture. Let me move out of the way in case you all want to take a snapshot. To thrive and move forward in life, it requires you to have a different view. All right. I want you to think about this in a second. Many of us go through life and we say, oh, I'm going to set a goal. But when we set that goal, you know what else we do? We take all of the stuff that we currently have with us that may be keeping us from pursuing that goal or getting that goal achieved, and we try to take it with us. We try to take 80% of existing things, and then we only use 20% of our energy and time for the new. And therefore, what happens is getting to our goals take much longer than what any of us may prefer. And the hard thing, the really, really hard thing for us to do is to let go. To let it go. I'm thinking about the song that my kids were singing from the movie. I forgot the name of the movie. It's a kids movie, but it's hard for us to let it go sometimes. It's hard for us to let go of friends or associates or acquaintances that we have known for a long time. But as your mindset changes, as you get older, It's required sometimes. It's hard for us to let go of old ways of thinking, of things that may have happened to us in the past that may inform us today, but it's necessary sometimes. And so, even within this book that's written by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, this 10x, to go 10x, it requires us to really put a flag in the ground and say, I'm leaving this behind so that I can have room, space, energy, motivation for all the new that I want to pursue. This is how I look at it. Okay, so this is my graphic. Okay, don't judge me, please. Please don't judge me. You all, the way that I look at this is, as a talent officer and for years, I've always kind of looked at the behavior and how people think and what motivates them or not. And what I noticed is here's kind of what we do in life. We look back to our past and we say, oh my gosh, I was not, I didn't have a silver spoon coming up. I could not afford that. I did not have this. I did not have this. So therefore I cannot do this or do that. What is that? When I listen to people share that, I think to myself, oh my gosh, but that is what makes you the strong, resilient, excellent person you are today. So instead of looking at it as a negative, why don't we celebrate our past reality that helped to make the current reality we are today? That is a different mindset. That is a shift. Instead of looking at it as a derailer or something that hinders you, we should be capitalizing on those resources and those things that we've been through to inform us of where we need to go. And on the other side, as Oliver Berkman said, you all, in life, here's what we do. The present. We worry about a past that has already happened that nobody can change. And even when we get our mind ready for the future and we start looking towards what can we do, what's possible, and what will be the challenges, we get a little anxious about it. And then we may decide not to do it. But what if we pause for a second and say, you know what? Opportunity lives in the future. I would not let my past inform my future, right? I would not let it keep me from where I want to go and what I want to do. I'm saying simple words, but I know in practice they're difficult. And all I'm asking today is that you be extremely curious about that. You be extremely mindful about shifting your mindset of letting go some of those old things that's keeping you from where you want to go so that you can have room for those new things. I have a slide that I want to show as well that helps to articulate what I would say is the difference between excellence and perfection. Let's take a look very quickly. And here's what I would like for you to do. In the chat, if there's a statement that resonates with you the most, go ahead and put it in the chat. So when we talk about this journey of excellence, I don't want to just put this out here in this, this theoretical concept that, does not have live application to it. And so I want to talk a little bit about McKessick. McKessick is someone who she was within the book, 10X is greater than 2X. But I'll tell you what I love about her particular story. So this lady, her husband and her owned a business. And there was a time when there was an economic downturn. So they were really struggling, right? Instead of just kind of paying the bills, they were watching every single one and trying to figure out how we're going to pay for it. In that moment, it challenged the thinking of this lady. And she thought to herself, things that she always wanted to do and that she could possibly do. So she went to be a realtor, you all. I'm giving you the short version of the story. She went to be a realtor. And starting off as a realtor, she was doing everything. She was doing the marketing. She was doing the scheduling. She was doing the tours, the whole shebang. But she was really good at it. She found out she was really good at being a realtor. But the issue is she wanted to grow, but with so many things going on, she could not understand how she would grow. So she took a leap. She took a leap and hired an assistant. She hired an assistant to do those things that were not necessarily beneath her, but what she wanted to do was place herself where she could add most value. And that was being out with the clients. That was being out with the clients trying to sell homes, not the administrative task. Not that she couldn't do it, but it was keeping up time. And so what she figured out was She hired an administrative assistant. She ended up getting more business. So much so, she had to hire another assistant, you all. I mean, the story is crazy. Let me fast forward and tell you what ended up happening. Because McKessick was able to let go of the old so she can have room for the new, this lady not only became a top seller for Keller Williams. In fact, the owner of Keller Williams even called this lady and asked her to come work for the national office to run all of sales at one point in time. And it eventually led to her just spurring a different career where she ended up becoming like a multimillionaire. And I want y'all to just go back because this type of story applies to all of us. We all have these moments in life where we come to this inflection point and say, my goodness, maybe this is the time when I pursue that different thing. Maybe this is the time when I just let all of this go and so that I can have room to do what's next for me in this one life I have to live. That's what she did. Look how it turned out. And I think that her story actually can apply to every person on this call and more, because we all have these moments. But the key, as I said earlier, is you got to let go of something to make room for the new. You all, what I believe is that to get to 10x, it does require a different you. And these pieces that you see here, commitment, courage, capability, and confidence, is the fuel that will help you to get to 10x a lot faster. So let's take a moment to just kind of dive into these for a second, if you will. I'm gonna come off the screen here. And the first part is to stay on path. This is about commitment, you all. Commitment is about understanding that we are the context of our thoughts and emotions, right? Because if we subconsciously believe that we cannot, guess what? We will not. But if we believe for some reason that we are things are not available for us to pursue, then it won't happen. What I want you to know is that our mind and people will always find ways to tell us that those dreams we have are more impossible than possible. But I don't want you to believe that. Because commitment is really about realizing that in order to truly transform, it is necessary, again, to shed the old. And this might include people, it might include processes, but it always begins with your thinking. The other thing is, listen, people, don't let people tell you that you are not smart enough, you're not good enough, whatever the case may be, right? Because as I talked about the story of Lisa McKessick earlier, a 10x mindset requires you to answer the questions for yourself. What am I best positioned to do with my unique skill set? And let me remind everyone that all of us have skills and gifts that can be used in this world, in this life. But understanding your unique skill set helps you answer a fundamental question that we all tend to have in life, which is why? But when you understand at a deep level why you exist, why you are better suited to perform a skill set A versus B, then the how becomes more achievable. If you try to get to the how before the why, it often turns out to be a failure because as the old saying goes, it's like putting a cart before the horse. And I've said this earlier, have confidence. Confidence is built through a process of reminding yourself of this principle. Again, you are smart enough, you are talented enough, savvy, creative, resourceful, passionate, driven, dedicated. You all can fill in the blank. The one thing that I will ask you to remind yourself is that you are good enough, right? You are good enough. You are excellent enough. And so to build confidence, imagine what it would be like to cash in on a 10x dream check, if you will. Now, back to that, personally for me, there are things that need to be true for me to do that. And I've shared some of those with y'all earlier. But lastly, I want to just say that these iterations of striving for excellence, you all, experiencing the ups, the downs, the tragedy, the triumph, it really does allow for us to intrinsically be more honest with ourselves, because that's where it all starts. It's about our lives. And it's also about building a version of freedom for us. And freedom can honestly be anything. It can be time, money, relationships, purpose. But most importantly, we have to be creative. We have to be bold. We have to be brave about cashing in on our dream check. And I'll close by saying this, you all, excellence, it's not about the final product. It's really about the quality and the process that leads to it. Excellence for me, you all, is really about the consistent demonstration time over time. Some people will call that resilience, right? things that align with our values and ethics of being, of operating at our best, being the best version of ourselves, not only for us, but for other people as well. But more importantly, as I shared earlier, excellence is a state of mind. Okay, let me first and foremost say that, because everything that you do in life starts with your insights, how you think, which actually informs your behaviors and ultimately the results that you get. It is a state of mind. It's a committed spirit of relentless pursuit to be great. So I'll close out by sharing this. Someone once said, who I really admire their life and what they did of going 10x versus 2x in life, they said the time is always right to do what is right. And that was by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you all for your time today. I hope that this short time that we had together was really helpful for you. And for those who will see the video, please share the video with other people who you feel like may need to hear this word. But I'll pause and turn it back over to Tariq to see if we have any questions. Again, thank you to the Advancement Association and the University of Memphis for inviting me today to speak with you all.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for those insights. Janice has been monitoring the chat, and we'll move into our Q&A portion.
Thank you, Tariq. Dr. Brown, we have some great questions in the chat.
Okay.
The first one, you're ready. Could you give us an example of a time that you had to release something and let something go in order to achieve one of your goals?
Holy smokes. Okay, so this is super relevant just because I'm on the phone with my beloved school. So you all, I'll be honest with you. When I first attended the University of Memphis, I had a great mentor. His name was Dr. Donald Carson. And when I got to the school, even though I was in engineering school, I knew by association of working with this gentleman that I wanted to be in a role like him, which was the vice president of student affairs at the university. And so throughout life, I pursued that goal. Once I left the university, I did all the things. But, I came to a juncture where I really had to reflect on where I was in life. And, up until that point, I had decided that I was going to, dedicate my life to some type of university setting. But you know what? Life happens. And there was a moment where I actually left the university, which was really, really scary for me. And I had to let go of all of the things I knew about that I felt like made me great, and the person that I was and had worked up to be. And I pursued something different. I took a lot of risk, started meeting a lot of new people, started applying for jobs in other industries. And I moved to a place called First Tennessee Bank at that time. And coming to First Tennessee Bank was extremely scary because I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm in this corporate environment that's going to be super stuffy. Nobody's going to be friendly. I'm not going to be successful. All I know is education, the world that I have grown up and lived in. But because I was at the bank, I really committed myself to learning as much as possible because I figured while I'm here, I might as well get to it. And so I let go of all of or many of the previous ideologies I had about working at a bank in corporate America, but also had to really flex a new muscle because I had to learn about all the different parts of a bank. It's not education, it's not departments, it's not tenure, it's not this, it's not that. So I had to really invest myself in recalibrating my mindset about what I wanted to do, where this could possibly go, and what would this mean for me. And I joke with people because I always told people, I'm gonna be at the bank for 1 year, you all. This is just a transition. Once I get this done, because my wife does not believe in me not working. So I was like, I'm gonna just do this for a while until I find something else. And I'm proud to say that 1 year has now turned into 13 years. I have moved from being an individual to now running or leading the department that I was hired into. So that's one example of where I had to shed a lot of the old things for myself to pursue new adventures, to cash in on the dream check, I guess, as you could say, as we said earlier.
Okay. And also, good answer, Dr. Brown. Another question. So, if you have been taught to strive for perfection, and you are one of the first in your family, how can you shift that mindset to just be great or just be enough?
Well, I think it's and I whoever said listen, whoever submitted that, I feel your pain because there's nothing like being the poster child, right? I think many of us on this call today probably have felt the brunt of being the poster child, where every time you're on display, right? You're on display and you're expected. That also comes with expectations. But let me go back to something that we went over earlier, and I apologize. I mean, we literally could have like an hour and a half session on this. Let's talk about intrinsic versus extrinsic. And it almost seems as if it has to be one or the other. But I want to go back to what my cousin said earlier, Dr. Brene Brown. I'm going to stop saying that. She's going to get me for saying that. But let's go back to what Dr. Brene Brown said earlier. It depends on what you are shooting for, right? And the moments and times. It depends on your own kind of mental thought around worthiness. A lot of times people will go through life with these with this external contingency, as I would say. And what I mean by that is external contingency is this: Mario Brown does not feel like he's successful until other people say so, or until other people validate me, right? So that's external contingency. What I would ask you all to think about is, how do you have for yourself more of an internal locus or internal contingency, where number one, you have clarified for yourself. Remember what I said earlier, you have clarified for yourself, why do I exist? What is my purpose in life? And how do I continue to push forward on that specific purpose that I know that I am here in this world to do? You all, what I will also kind of tag along with that is, if you can identify that and do that in a very excellent way, this idea of perfect may come out of your vocabulary. Why? Because ultimately what will happen is your excellence is probably other people's view of perfection. But see, what I don't want you to be is to be tethered to that, right? So that's why I keep saying, find out who you are, what you want to do, and be really, really great at that. Going through life trying to live, up to expectations of people, and that is a majority of your focus of control. That is a majority of your focus. I would just say that's probably not a good way to live. You certainly want to make people proud, but you should be able to do that in the way that you know how and that you can. But to live remember the staircase, but to live in a world or in a life where every time you make a step, it goes further, and the goal of perfection gets further and further away. I just don't know if that's a good way to live life altogether.
Okay, Dr. Brown, one final question. What is the one thing that keep you moving forward? Fear from failure, fear or failure?
Okay, what is the one thing that keeps me moving forward? Is it fear or failure? Can I say both? I know that whoever asked that question is probably like, no, you cannot say both. I want to say both, you all. And here's what I'll say. As I have become older in life, I realized that both are necessary for me to transform and be the person that I'm trying to be. I was talking to my son the other day. He goes to university schools at the University Middle. He's 12 years old. And I was asking him, was he a little bit fearful about these tryouts? And he said no. And I was like, wow, that's a great place to be. But he's 12. And so they always get on me because like, oh my gosh, Dad, is this another lesson? Like, you always have questions and lessons. I'm like, yeah, that's part of life. But anyhow, so I asked him, I said, why are you not fearful? And then I told him, I said, for me, fear is necessary because for me, fear gets my adrenaline going, right? It kind of gets my endorphins going. It makes me start to think better, harder, faster about things. And I think there's probably some chemistry that goes along with that too. But I think it's important to have a little bit of fear because I think that's like a motivator. It's like an internal motivator. Now, I hope it's not crippling for people because sometimes it can be crippling. But I want you to think about it once again. It's all about the mindset. It's all about the mindset. Can you all do me a favor before I talk about failure? There is a gentleman that did a TED talk. I can't remember his name right now. It escaped me, but he had a wonderful TED talk, and it's called fear planning. Fear planning. And basically, what he asked the audience to do is most people plan out their goals, like all these positive things, but they never plan for fear or failure in life. But he argued, and I think it was wonderful. As a matter of fact, I did it. He said, but if you take a moment and think about the worst things that could happen to you in life along the way, and right now, while you're not in that situation, you're in a place and a space where you can be thoughtful about it and creative about it. This is the best time to plan for it. And I was like, holy smokes, this is such a great idea. And there is a point in time when I first watched it, when I wrote out like, what are my greatest fears? And so if these things were to happen, what would Mario Brown do? Like, how do I need to get myself together? What connections do I need to make? What thought processes do I need to have to make it through? Right. And so I would say fear is necessary as a part of life. And so too is failure. You all, failure is how the brain and the body kind of picks up on the cues of what's right and what's wrong, what does work, what does not work, what's promising or not, what will help me or hinder me as well. And so, honestly, does it make me nervous to fail? Absolutely. But also, I just kind of expected, like, okay, dude, you can plan all you want to, and you need to get this right, but just be okay if you don't like lose your stuff and fall out, if you fail, it'll be fine, right? You got to pick up the pieces and push through it again. Now, you also have to be thoughtful about that because failures come at different magnitudes as well. So that is up to you to decide, how you want to approach that. But I will say that fear and failure are actually both necessary for us to transition and transform in life.
Thank you for that, Dr. Brown.
Absolutely.
I do have one last question if you got time to answer.
This is fun.
This one is, what is your advice for leaders who need to shift the mindset of employees? And I know you have 7,500 people that you're responsible for. So particularly those who may be stuck in their ways.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Jay Ray. So Jay Ray knows as the Chief Talent Strategy Officer of the organization, every day we are trying to shift the mindsets of our associates in a more favorable way. Nothing negative. We're not trying to get people to drink the Kool-Aid unless we feel like it's a promising Kool-Aid flavor, right? That will help them personally and professionally. But let me go back to something around adult learning theory, because most of the time you all are working with adults. We all know that adults learn best through their own awareness, coming to their own awareness. Like they'll do what you say, but they'll do better if they come to that conclusion on their own or through some type of experience. So when you're thinking about shifting a team, let me just first say this. Shifting a team's mindset is not a on-off switch. Like you can't come and do a workshop or something and then expect for everybody to be great tomorrow. It just does not work. It took years. You got to think about it. It took years for these individuals to shape their thoughts and behaviors and their mindset for today. And so you doing one workshop or experience, something that is sporadic, not consistent, not sustainable, it's not going to really do much for that. And so what I would say is, if you really want to shift the mindsets of people, you're going to have to put in some work. Shifting mindsets is like taking a cruise ship or the biggest boat you've ever seen in your life and turning it around 180. It takes time, okay? It takes time. The biggest thing you can do for people is let them come to their own awareness about what's helpful and what's hindering progress, especially when they're in collective groups, right? Mindsets by themselves, individuals are probably not as bad. Like you want people to do better. But when you're at work, which I think this person is asking, when you're at work and you all have a collective goal and things that you need to achieve, you need for people to have somewhat of a similar mindset so that we can collectively get to our goal. And so what I would say is with that, collectively, There need to be sustainable and repeatable processes where people, number one, understand where are the mindsets in this room. Am I forward looking? Are you more backwards looking? Where are we at? And what informs our behaviors? Like, how did I even get to the point of thinking the way I do? Because some of you all on the call will know there are some people who I will say there are some people who probably do not have very promising behaviors. And then when you talk to them, guess what? They really don't recognize that these are not promising behaviors. Like, they don't know. They don't know. And so what you have to do is go back to the root cause of it and say, okay, how did we get here? And so what we do here at the bank is we don't try to preach to people and tell them what to do. We try to allow them to think through their own thinking. So we set up experiences where it challenges the way that they think. We at the bank, we call it unfreezing mindsets, right? So you have kind of shaped your mindset over the years and you kind of frozen and stuck in it. And so what we try to do is say, let's unthaw that and unpack some of that mindset. And then we're going to ask you to think about, so what's next? Now that you have become aware, what's next for you? Only you know. I can't tell you, only you know. What we have found here is that is really the best process to allow them to come to their own conclusions through a structured framework. And then we start to get the momentum that we want. So that's my advice, is setting up something that's sustainable and repeatable that allows those team members to come to their own conclusions around where they are, where we are not. And then you as a leader finding out, how do I help to consistently move this forward? And remember, it's like turning a big boat. It's not going to happen all in one day or 1 week. Depending on the severity of it or the dynamics of the team, it could take a while, but it's all worth it. I'll say it's worth every penny and energy of your energy to do so.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. That's the final question.
It's been fantastic. I think it's back to you, Tariq. I don't want to take over.
All right, I'll close this out.
Okay.
Firstly, thank you, Dr. Brown, for sharing your insights today. And thank you, Janice, for your support.
Yes.
And thank you to everyone who joined us for this session of Lunch with Leaders. We
Absolutely.
appreciate you for spending your lunch hour with us. We also invite you to join us for our next Lunch and Leaders webinar featuring Soon G. Woods on April 3rd from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Registration details will be shared soon after today's session. Have a good afternoon and go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Thank you all.